Hi, I'm Doug, the creative behind The Next Season, where I refinish used, abused, tired, and old furniture. I just finished a project where I refinished a vintage sideboard. In this video, I'm going to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly of bringing The Next Season to this fine piece of furniture. So for any project, the first things you need to do is to first clean and then to sand the piece that you're working on. I've already cleaned this piece. I used a product called Krud Kutter. I really like that a lot. It seems to do a good job of removing dirt and grime. And on this particular piece, it was also pulling out all the stain. Every time I tried to wipe it down, it would pull out more and more of the orange stain. And I was starting to wonder what this was going to be like when I primed it, if it was going to be bleed through or not. But I like to use either my Orbital sander or my SurfPrep, except for places like this where I need to get in with sandpaper and do it more by hand on some of the places where the power tools just can't get in. I started with about 80 grit pieces of sandpaper and finally moved up to 220, and to get all these little nooks and crannies on this that I can't get with the SurfPrep. The SurfPrep is good on rounded areas, and I did use that on the inside. The braces there, which are slightly rounded, is really good for that. Also, because I'm going to redo the inside of this, I'm going to sand the inside as well. Now, I have found this to be a handy little tool. It's a Ryobi high-power inflator. So I'm not using it for what it was intended for. But it's got two nozzles, and it's great for getting the initial dust and sanding dust off of the piece after you've sanded it. One other thing I want to mention is, these Orbital sanders, a lot of sanders today come with little bags that you can collect dust, and I've used that before, and on my other one I actually lost the bag. I must admit I used it outside without the bag, so dust went everywhere. And some people have really, really cool dust extraction systems. I just got an adapter for this one and hooked it up to my small wet dry vac, and it's just great. I use the same thing on the SurfPrep. They've got their own hose that adapts in, and it really cuts down on the dust that's going all around. So I suggest, if you're going to be doing this a lot, look at getting an adapter for your wet dry vac. You don't really need to spend a whole lot of money, at least in my opinion, on a really fancy dust extractor if you're doing this kind of work. Okay, so I got one side of the panels completely sanded down, and when you sand, you get kind of close and personal, and you find out all kinds of things that you really didn't see before, and some I already knew about. So I thought, before I flip it back over to sand, I'm going to fix some of this. Some of these dings, like we've got one right there, we got one right there, one right over here, and then we've got several down in here, and it's rough along the edge. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's not flat. And this little hole right here was where we had, they're kind of like, I don't know what they call it, but they're like push latches. They've got a little thing on the door. Here, let me find one and I'll show you. So as you can see, this right here is what would go in this hole. And you can see that they're all kind of worn out and nasty. And then this is what is on the door side. So I'm going to fill those holes and I'm going to replace those with a different kind of latch. Not sure what yet, but I'll figure that out. So I'm going to mix up some Bondo. Here's another place I just saw up here that probably needs to do a little bit of attention. So I'm going to mix up some Bondo and we're going to fill these holes, and I'll come back after I've done that and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I've got some of the Bondo on this side. I'm just waiting for it to dry. So, but I need to cut some supports, and I'm going to cut it out of this wood for the shelf for here and on top and on this what would be the right side than the left side. And so so I need to cut. This one's going to be full length. The one on the right and the left is going to be half sizes. So we're going to measure this, and I'm going to cut them here in just a minute. And it looks like it is 16 7/8. We're going to call it 16 7/8. I don't want to forget it, so I'm going to write it down. I mean, my saw's right behind me, but you know what? Sometimes you say, well, is that 7/8 or what? So now I'm going to go over and cut this on the saw, and we're going to make sure that it fits. Okay, so here I am at my miter saw stand. I built this earlier this year because I knew it was going to come in handy. And I found some really good plans, at least some ideas from people who have posted on YouTube. And this is going to work just great. So 16 7/8. I've got a, if you can quite see it, I'll turn this a little bit. There's a stop here that I built in on a track, a T-track with measure tape that is metal, I guess, or plastic that is embedded. That way, when I set the stop, I'm going to get the same cut. I've got to cut two of them, so I'll make sure that they're the same length. And I do trust this, but I just want to double check. You know what they say? You cut once, you measure twice, cut once. 16 7/8. All right. That's easy enough. So let me just flip this camera on around here, and we're just going to make sure that it all fits. It's just a tad long. Maybe I must have, like about a 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to cut this off. So stand by and I'll be right back. Power tools. What would you do without them? So that's perfect. So now I'm going to make the other cut. And let's see if I've got enough on this one. I do. All right. So we'll put this edge up here. All right. And this should also fit. Right? You'd think so. Right, okay. So I've got my two supports, my shelf supports cut. Now I'm going to have to cut the supports for the left and the right side. So, but before I do that, I need to cut the shelf down. The shelf, what do I do with the shelf, is came with this, but it doesn't fit. It is too long. The width-wise is fine, but it's too long. So I'm going to cut it in half, And we're going to put a half shelf here and a half shelf down there. All right, I'm going to do some measuring and I'll be back soon. So basically what I need to do in order to install these 3 shelves is I've got to mount braces on the left, the right, and the middle. What was there before were just screws, and it just looked tacky. And so I decided I would replace those screws and put on wooden shelf braces. Now the one in the middle is almost full length, and the 2 on the sides, like I said earlier, I cut that shelf, and I'm going to make 2 half shelves. That's kind of what we have in our dining room hutch that we have. The ones in the middle are full length, full depth, I guess, and then we have 2 smaller shelves on the outer sides. And so that's what I'm going to do here. As it turns out, the shelf that came with this, even though I said that it was too long but the width was okay, once I started to put it in, after I'd cut it, and I actually put it on the braces, I found that it was not quite wide enough. It was just off just a little, and so I actually had to go out and buy some wood and make the 2 shelves for the right and the left. The center one turned out to be okay. So what I'm doing now is putting on the braces. You know, it's a little tedious. You know, I obviously have to clamp the braces, get them level, and then I'm shooting screws in them to hold them. And luckily the screws are not going all the way through, so this is working out great. So the next thing I'm going to have to do is do the right and the left, the shorter shelf braces. This is going to be a little bit more difficult to install because I only can use 1 clamp here. So I'm going to clamp the back, I'm going to level them up, and then I'm actually going to shoot small brad nails in to hold them till I can get the screws in. So once I've got one side done, then I will level up and put the other side in, and then repeat the whole process for the other end of the sideboard. So it would have been nice to have had a few extra hands here, but I didn't, so I had to make do. If you recall earlier, I expressed being concerned about the amount of stain or tannin that Krud Kutter was pulling out of this wood. So as you can see from the pictures, the first primer I put on this did not work. This primer was Kills Restoration. It is said to block stains, block tannins. It didn't work at all, not for me. I actually ended up taking it back. Then the next primer I tried was Ben's shellac-based primer. Now shellac-based primer is really supposed to block this stuff from showing through. It also did not work. The photos look exactly the same as when I used the Kills Restoration. So my third attempt at the primer for this piece was Cover Stain from Zinsser. That worked great. It blocked everything. I only had to use 1 coat. And it didn't cover completely on 1 coat, but it was not pulling through the tannins either. So I think 1 coat's going to be fine. So at any rate, all primers are not equal. So my recommendations is for furniture you're not sure about, Cover Stain. It's finally time to start painting. I am using a Graco TrueCoat 360 variable speed sprayer and Sherwin-Williams urethane trim enamel in a color called Origami White. I've got the sprayer set on a 5, which is obviously halfway between the minimums and the maximums. It seemed the paint is fairly thick and the 5 seems to be working really well. As you can see, I decided to spray the doors off of the sideboard since they were already off anyway for other reasons. I decided to spray them separately. We'll be using 2 coats of the white. Then we are going to be following that with Varathane's water-based polyacrylic. I'm going to be spraying that also with the sprayer. I had some problems with this, quite frankly. I had the sprayer set too high. Should have been a lower setting because I had to babysit runs on the sides and smooth those out until it started to dry. But we finally adjusted it, and we have 2 coats on the sides and 3 coats of the polyurethane on the top. So I believe I can call this project done. This turned out very, very nice. Even with all the errors and trials and tribulations I had to go through, I'm really pleased with it. I had done these drawers in Mama's Butta, which really rejuvenated the inside. They also got felt inserts in there that came with the sideboard. And now we're going to put it up on the market, and we hope it's going to sell soon. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found something that can help you on your projects. And I hope that you join me on my next adventure here at the next season.